This is now my 7th take, and I keep screwing up, so at this point, I'm just gonna say, stuff it, we're doing it live. Welcome to this painting video. I'm more or less using this as a test for my camera, my overhead settings, how it is to actually film, because it's a little bit awkward having a camera in your face, this microphone, editing flow, you name it. If you've been subscribed for a while, hi, it's nice to see you again. I haven't posted a video in years. If you're new, because there's been a lot of people that have followed me on Instagram since I posted anything, hi. Today we're painting a Necron Warrior. I recently decided I wanted to finally paint some of my Indomitus models. I, like everyone, rushed to get that box, and then like many people didn't touch it. I didn't touch the Marines. The only Marines I painted were some commission ones, and the Necrons have been sitting around for I don't know, well over a year, like year and 2 months, year 3 months, until I decided I would paint some. So here's me kind of figuring out the scheme. Now, before we actually get into the video, I want to thank today's video sponsor. But considering I haven't posted anything in years, I don't really have a following, I don't have views, my sponsor is me. Now, the only thing I really have to shill is Patreon. Now, over there, there's going to be a bunch of fun rewards that I'm going to be setting up. There's going to be some email tuition stuff. I'm going to be giving away models that I paint frequently, because a lot of the time it's just going to be, you know, one-off infantry characters. Although for the next video, I have actually painted this Bane Blade that, if I've remembered it anything, should be on screen right now. Since I was hyped about Krieg. So I stuck a little Krieg dude in there, painted that up, and I'm going to be giving that away to say thanks to the guys that have been on there supporting me. So yeah, if you want to go check that out, I would really appreciate it. If not, just like, subscribe. If not, unsubscribe. That's cool. Thanks for your view anyway. So for this video, I'm just going to be testing this scheme out. I've got an idea in mind. I'm going to be using some Necron Warriors for this, of course. So they're already assembled, they're already based, just with some sand on PVA with a bit of watered down PVA on top to lock that in. So our first real step is priming the miniature. For this, I've used Vallejo's airbrush polyurethane primer. I like it. I've got a ton of it. It's not terribly expensive. I find it goes on smooth out of the airbrush. You know, no issues. I blasted at a relatively high PSI. I prefer the control you get with it and the finish you get with it over rattle cans. So yeah. Now, I was pretty sure from the get-go that I wanted these guys to be beat up. So the first step was to airbrush some Rhinox hide as a complete base coat over the entire miniature except for the gun. This is going to be because the next step will be putting on some AK Interactive, I think it is, chipping fluid. Now, they have two. There's heavy chipping fluid and worn effects. For infantry, I prefer using the worn effects. The chips that you get from it are generally a lot smaller, more controlled, so that it look less cartoony on your infantry. So once we've, of course, airbrushed that on as well, you can brush that as well. But once that's dried, we use our first base coat. So this is going to be a mixture. Well, actually, no, I lie. This is just straight Steel Legion drab from Games Workshop. I thought it was a mixture of Rhinox hide and that, but no. The next one is going to be a mixture of that, the Steel Legion drab that is, and Vallejo's off-white. I believe this is game color. Now, this is once again out of the airbrush. The off-white doesn't airbrush too great. It's not terrible. It's quite good for a white off-white. But I did add a drop of airbrush flow improver and a drop of, maybe 2 drops of airbrush thinner. Of course, it depends how much you're actually airbrushing for those mixtures, but just play around with it with your PSIs until you get it right. Now, our next step here is just airbrushing straight off-white from Vallejo. Now, with this, I only want to pick the highest points of the miniature, the face, the shoulders, maybe a hand that's protruding, something like that. Now you'll see me using the airbrush, and this is just straight water. So what I'm doing is I'm moistening up the paint, and this is activating that chipping fluid underneath. You can use a brush as well. I often just douse it in water with a brush, that's fine. And I'll have a cup of clean water on standby to clean a brush. We're gonna want to use a old crappy beat up destroyed brush for this. Once the paint's moistened up, we can actually start to rub it and wipe away the paint, chip away the paint, wipe away. Sounds wrong for what we're doing. We're using this product for what it's meant for. So with this, we'll get lots of little chips. Now, this is only one way to weather a model like this. You can just as easily brush on Rhinox hide or your color of choice. You can sponge it on, you can stipple it on. This just gives an effect that I like. Now I'm gonna airbrush the model completely, lock in those paint layers. So I'm gonna brush it with a gloss varnish. The gloss varnish I've used is a Liquitex one, but there's many out there. Games Workshop, Ardcoat, Vallejo have a ton, AK have a ton. Now it looks like a brown turd afterwards, and that's because after we've protected the paint with that gloss varnish, we've then gone and airbrushed it with Vallejo AK Interactive Streaking Grime. This is pretty much my secret sauce for speed painting infantry. I love this stuff. You can once again use this in a ton of ways. You can brush this on, you can airbrush it on, which is my preferred method. You can thin it down as a wash and wash with that. It's an enamel, so it acts very differently to a regular wash. But what I'm doing here is I've sprayed it over the entire model, just in a thin coat. It doesn't need to have complete coverage, that's fine. I've then put some white spirit. Any white spirit's fine, but mine of choice is Winsor & Newton's white spirit. In a cup, I then douse a crappy brush with it and just start working my way over the miniature, and you'll see that kind of activates, I guess you could say, or I don't know what activates the streak and grime, and we can just pull that right off and leave whatever's left just in the recesses. Now when it dries, it does like to, it'll pull in the recesses, but it kind of feathers itself out nicely. So it's a really quick, easy way to give a dirty effect. Now your paint layer won't be exactly the same as it was underneath, but it will be close. But if you're going to do this, I would recommend doing your base layers brighter than you intend to actually have the miniature end up as after. Another easy way to do this, instead of just going at it with a brush, is using Q-tips or sponges. A lot of people like to use that, but for quick and simplicity's sake, I like using a brush, especially on something like Necrons where it's pretty much over the whole model. We're doing this. The next step for me is to block in every single part of the miniature that's not bone armor. For that, we're using Scale 75's black. It's a kind of gel-based paint, so it acts a little bit differently to your regular Games Workshop Vallejo water-based acrylics. But I love this stuff. It's extremely matte, so if you do want a different finish, I would recommend a different black. But this will give us a fantastic layer for our metallics to bond onto, and to kind of give a different, very flat finish to our weapon. I'm then going to do all of the metallics except for the spine in this case. So we're going to be base coating that with my favorite metallic paint of all time. This is Vallejo Metal Colors Exhaust Manifold. It's a closer to a dark steel, but it's a little bit brighter, but it's quite warm at the same time. I don't know why, I'm just extremely fond of this color. After that, I'm base coating the spine, and I can't remember if I did it now or if I decided to later, one of the coils on the gun. That's getting base coated in a darker copper. I can't remember the name of the paint off the top of my head. It's a Scale 75 one. I'll put it on the screen now, but I'm recording this separate, so yeah, my brain, it's eluding me. I'm now going to use one of my secret sauce money-saving tricks. This isn't the cheapest way to make a, a black wash or a brown wash or anything by any means, but this is a cheap way that I found to make a wash that I'm quite fond of. So this is a very dark black-brown wash. It's a 1-to-1-to-1 mixture of Agrax Earthshade from Games Workshop, black wash like from Vallejo. It's just a big pot of dip wash. This is the one and only that I've ever bought, and I've been, you know, I've already painted over 1,000 models this year with commission painting, and I'm nowhere near done with this. I've made many Games Workshop pots worth of wash out of this. So that, as well as Vallejo's airbrush thinner. I sometimes go back and forth between airbrush thinner and flow improver. It doesn't make a huge difference, but I like the airbrush thinner. It gives it more of a wash consistency, and it doesn't take as long to dry. With that, we're going to go over every single little bit of metal. Just standard wash, nothing really to write home about here. Once that's dry, I'm going to move on to mixing another wash, essentially. I'm using Vallejo's dark rust or rust pigment. One of the two. You can use either or interchangeably, or mix them together. Just kind of depends on the rust look you want to go with. So I'm taking some of this pigment and I'm mixing it with isopropyl alcohol. I don't know if this is necessarily the best thing to mix it with, or if you just want to suspend it in a medium or whatever, but I found that this is an easy way to mix it. It dries fast and it's tough as nails. Once that mix has dried and been applied first to all of the metallic parts bar the bronze, and then dried, I'm going to do a mixture between dry brushing and stippling. So I'm using Vallejo's Game Air Silver for this, one of the best bright silvers for me. It's not quite as metallic and sparkly as the metal color paints, but it's a lot thicker, so I mostly use it for edge highlighting, dry brushing, stippling, that kind of thing, like we're doing right here. It's perfect for that job, so this is a mainstay of my metallic collection. Now, it looks like I must have forgotten to record this step. I probably got a little bit excited experimenting, but the weapon is a little almost dusty looking. I did that with a mix of Abtelung 502's light mud oil paint. That, once again, was thinned down with the same Winsor & Newton white spirit as used before. Just washed that over the black weapon. Once dried, kind of creates a crusty, dusty look that I was quite fond of, especially for the time spent on it. Now I'm kind of highlighting, but I want it to look a little bit rough because, you know, age, Necrons, all that. So we're doing an edge highlights / stippling job, and I'm using Vallejo's Intermediate Grey. It's a bit of a blue grey. I just wanted to introduce some colder colors when it comes to the weapon, considering the metallic and the armor thus far is completely dominated by warm tones. I'm using an acrylic heavy body white. This is a Liquitex one, and then I've just thinned the crap out of it with airbrush thinner, and I'm kind of trying to use that as an ink, but it doesn't quite work the same way. But anyway, I'm filling in all of the crevices, all the little recesses in the weapon. I don't know what you'd call them, all the little patterning now that they don't have the cute little green rods anymore. We're just flooding that with heavy body white. Much better coverage even though it's thin. Not quite as nice to use as ink, but serves the purpose. I'm then just giving those same areas a quick wash with Games Workshop's Technical Paint Tesseract Glow, and then, not gonna lie, kind of phoned it in. I'm using Vallejo's Scurvy Green and Livery Green, I believe it's called. I may have used Escorpina Green from Vallejo in between, but that's essentially my flow of colors for my Necron Green when it comes to blending for their weapons and whatnot. And just blended a quick little power glow on his weapon cable. Then did a quick basing job, just Rhinox Hide dry brush mixed with white, and then Vallejo dark ochre pigment, of course sealed with isopropyl alcohol. Dotted the eyes with white and added that same contrast or technical paint to that, and called it done. I'm pretty happy with how this scheme turned out. I think it's you know, it's classic, but it's nice and striking, at least enough on the tabletop. But I think I should be able to get an army of these done nice and quick to actually be able to get some games in, which would be nice because I haven't played 40k in 4 years now. So anyway, let me know what you thought about this video. Like I said before, this is mostly a test of a lot of things. If you have any thoughts, I would absolutely love to hear them in the comments. If you want to check out Patreon, awesome. Like I said, I'm going to be giving away a Baneblade that I'm painting in the next video. Although it's a shadow sword. Actually, I need to remember to call it a shadow sword, or maybe I should just keep calling it a Baneblade, because I don't think anyone, except for diehard Imperial Guard fans, know what or remember what a shadow sword is. I didn't until just now. Anyway, I'm rambling. It's like 2 a.m. I'm sitting in my car because my apartment's too loud outside, and I don't know how to sound off a video, so see ya.